Chapter 56. From the helicopter, Max could see the coast of Sardinia, thickly blanketed by a cloud of swirling red dust. The pilot shouted above the din of the rotor blades. "It's gotten worse! I don't know if I can land!" "You've got to," Max yelled. "Head for Porto Cervo." The pilot turned to look at Max. "That's at the top of the fucking mountain." "I know," Max said. "Can you do it?" "Our chances are about 70-30. "Which way?" "Against." The smoke was seeping in under the door, coming from below through the floorboards, and the new sound had been added to the shrieking of the wind. The roar of flames. Elizabeth knew now. She had the answer, but it was too late to save her life. She was trapped here. Of course, it did not matter whether doors or mirrors and furniture had been smashed, because in a few minutes nothing would be left of this house, or of her. Everything would be ruined by the fire, as the laboratory in Emil Dwepley had been destroyed, and Reese would have an alibi in some other place, so that he could not be blamed. He had beaten her. He had beaten them all. The smoke was beginning to billow into the room now, yellow. Acrid fumes that made Elizabeth choke. She could see the edges of the flames start to lick at the cracks of the door, and she began to feel the heat. It was her anger that gave Elizabeth the strength to move. Through the blinding haze of the smoke, she felt her way toward the French doors. She pushed them open and stepped onto the balcony. The instant the doors opened, the flames from the hallway leaped into the room, licking at the walls. Elizabeth stood on the balcony, gratefully gulping in deep breaths of fresh air as the wind tore at her clothes. She looked down. The balcony protruded from the side of the building, a tiny island hanging over an abyss. There was no hope, no escape. Unless, Elizabeth looked up at the sloping slate roof above her head. If there was some way for her to reach the roof and get to the other side of the house that was not burning yet, she might get away. She stretched her arms as high as she could, but the eave of the roof was behind her reach. The flames were beginning to move closer now, enveloping the room. There was a slender chance. Elizabeth took it. She forced herself to go back into the blazing, smoke-filled room, choking from the acrid fumes. She grabbed the chair behind her father's desk and dragged it onto the balcony. Fighting to keep her balance, she positioned the chair and stood on top of it. Her fingers could reach the roof now, but they could not find a grip. She fumbled blindly, vainly, searching to get a purchase. Inside, the flames had reached the curtains and were dancing all around the room, attacking the books and the carpet and the furniture, moving toward the balcony. Elizabeth's fingers suddenly found a grip on a protruding slate. Her arms were leaden. She was not sure she could hold on. She started to pull herself up, and the chair began to slip away from her. With her last remaining strength, she pulled herself up and held on. She was climbing the walls of the ghetto now, fighting for her life. She kept pulling and straining, and suddenly she found herself lying on the sloping roof, gasping for breath. She forced herself to move, inching her way upward, pressing her body against the steep pitch of the roof, aware that one slip would hurtle her into the black abyss below. She reached the peak of the roof and paused to catch her breath and take her bearings. The balcony she had just escaped from was blazing. There could be no turning back. Looking down on the far side of the house, Elizabeth could see the balcony of one of the guest bedrooms. There were no flames there yet, but Elizabeth did not know whether she would be able to reach it. The roof slanted sharply downward. The slates were loose. The wind was pulling madly at her. If she slipped, there would be nothing to stop her fall. She stayed where she was, frozen, afraid to try it. And then, like a sudden miracle, a figure appeared on the guest balcony, and it was Alec. And he was looking up and calling out calmly, "You can make it, old girl. Nice and easy." And Elizabeth's heart soared within her. "Take it slow," Alec counseled. "One step at a time. It's a piece of cake." And Elizabeth began to let herself move toward him, carefully, sliding down inch by inch, not letting go of one slate until she had found a firm grip on another. It seemed to take forever, and all the while she heard Alec's encouraging voice, urging her on. She was almost there now, sliding toward the balcony. A slate loosened and she started to fall. "Hold on," Alec called. Elizabeth found another hold, grabbing it fiercely. She had reached the edge of the roof now, with nothing below her but endless space. She would have to drop down onto the balcony where Alec stood waiting. If she missed, Alec was looking up at her, his face filled with quiet confidence. "Don't look down," he said. "Close your eyes and let yourself go. I'll catch you." She tried. She took a deep breath, and then another. She knew she had to let go, and yet she could not bring herself to do it. Her fingers were frozen to the tiles. "Now!" Alec called. And Elizabeth let herself drop, and she was falling into space. And suddenly she was caught in Alec's arms as he pulled her to safety. She closed her eyes in relief. "Well done," Alec said. And she felt the muzzle of a gun against her head.